use the diaphragm, this is what it sounds like when it's not engaged. I have to engage it, and we're all doing it without even realizing during the day, right? Diaphragm, a lot of us push from our throat, right? But the diaphragm, the power of that is mind-blowing. Mouth like this. There's a fire. And you shouldn't feel any air on your hand when you're singing with optimal airflow. Hi, I'm Angie from Angie's Vocals, and today we're going to talk about the science of singing. What happens inside your body when you are singing. And this is a game changer because anatomy is everything. And most of the times when people have challenges with their singing or their talking, it's because they don't understand the anatomy. So we're doing things counterintuitively or the wrong way to how your voice works. Don't forget to subscribe or click the notifications as well so that you know when we've got a new video coming out. We're putting out content all the time and answering your questions. Jump onto Linktree to find out how you can make the most of the content that we provide to help you unlock your voice. It's actually so much easier than you think. So firstly, we're going to start with the anatomy of the vocal folds and how they function. Now, the vocal folds are these amazing, amazing things sitting inside your airway, just gentle like a little V, and they vibrate when you talk, when you sing, when you hum. And what most people don't realize is they vibrate when we're talking. It's basic frequency and the law of physics, right? So they're vibrating higher and higher. As they go higher, vibrating faster. So as they go higher, they need less air, less muscle pressure, more support, which is interesting. And what happens is, because they're vibrating faster and faster, we tend to squeeze, so that means we create tension. Now, a perfect example of that is as we're going to higher notes, if we take a deep breath, a lot of us do that and then go, ah, right? But it's actually the opposite. Because they're vibrating faster and faster, we need less air, less muscle tension, and more support from down here so that we don't get in the way. Now, as we're breathing through the vocal folds, the sound travels up and hits the back of our soft palate, and then the sound splays from there. So it goes forward, it goes back, and resonates through the cavities in our face. And that's how we create sound. That's how we affect the tone, even through the cavity spaces. We can be quite nasally, we can be dark and warm from the back. We can be high, we can be full, we can be loud, we can be soft. So all those resonant spaces take that sound that's coming from the folds and resonates through our face mask. But it's the opposite, right, of what we think. It's not up, it's not down. Secondly, the diaphragm and how it affects our singing is, so the diaphragm is paper thin and it sits just under your lungs. So every time you breathe, it drops down and it supports the talking, right? And the singing. So all day your diaphragm is working gently but powerfully to create sound and to support your voice. Now, if I don't use the diaphragm, this is what it sounds like when it's not engaged. I have to engage it, and we're all doing it without even realizing during the day, right? But if I turn it off, can you see I'm using the vocal folds, but nothing. So now if I engage it, I can talk softly. I can talk very loudly if I push from the diaphragm. A lot of us push from our throat, right? But the diaphragm, the power of that is mind-blowing. So most of our diaphragms are very, very strong because we're talking all day, every day, right? So it needs to be engaged. Now, what happens with the diaphragm is as we're going higher with our voice, I have to gauge that diaphragm to create that volume up the top. If I don't, I can't even get a high note. So that has to be engaged for the high notes. Now, a lot of you might engage that diaphragm, but have the squeezing here. That has so that we can use that diaphragm and engage that to support our high notes. If I'm doing that on a high note, every time you're hearing that, I'm pulling the diaphragm in to create that. So up in the high notes, that diaphragm is actually in control of so many things. And that's that engagement we need for that diaphragm to use that power. Don't realize it. Because of computers and where we're all on screen time now, most of us tend to roll forward with our back kind of tends to hunch, and that actually creates tension around our shoulders, around our vocal folds. It's harder to support voice. So the best way to have the right posture is to actually stand against a wall and have your shoulders and your head touching the wall, the back of the wall, and it feels so weird, but that's actually like straight posture. You need to make sure that your chin isn't lifted or isn't dropped, because if you lift it, it strains on the vocal folds. If you drop it, it compresses. So the most relaxed singers, their posture is shoulders relaxed, too high, down too high, just relaxed, and everything relaxed across the chest and in our throat and neck, relaxed. And you'll find if you stand against a wall, for most people, it feels so weird, but that's kind of that relaxed posture. Now, if you do have back issues, anything like that, it might feel uncomfortable, so you want to find comfortable. But where this plays a big part is that when we're in that position, the muscles are functioning properly. So our diaphragm can support, our neck is relaxed, shoulders is relaxed. The best singers, you'll notice, are just relaxed all the way through here. When they're doing those crazy big high notes, singing with emotion, this is like glass. But where this plays a big part is that when we're in that position, the muscles are functioning properly. So our diaphragm can support, our neck is relaxed, shoulders is relaxed. The best singers, you'll notice, are just relaxed all the way through here. When they're doing those crazy big high notes, singing with emotion, this is like glass. No strain, no movement, big things happening, like the straining of those muscles popping. And that's where the voice can function the most effortlessly, the most powerfully, is with that posture. And then you can anchor when you're standing, and your diaphragm and support all those areas right down to your lower back, and your glutes are actually all supporting that voice production, so that then you can support from here and have that control to express whatever you want to with your voice, the light and shade, without any restrictions and pressure. Now, the next one is how powerful it is to visualize airflow when you're singing for optimal singing. It is amazing how the airflow affects everything, because we need a lot less air than we think. And so often we take those big breaths and try to do the high notes, but it gets stuck, right? Stuck right here. Now, the game changer with how much air you need when you're singing, basically you need virtually none to sing with power and quality without it straining or getting stuck. Now, one of my favorite ways to visualize that is in operatic circles. They train singers with a candle. And when they're singing huge big songs, like there's a fire burning in my heart, anywhere in your range, they've got to sing with a candle, and the flame is not allowed to flicker. That shows you that you've got optimal airflow. You go, the less air we need for that quality. If you're using too much air, it'll actually either sound raspy like this, or it might sound strained, and you won't have that tonal quality. And that gives you a visual of really how much air we are using, too much air. Now, the safer version, I used to use that, and sometimes your hair can get in the way, girls. But the other way is to actually put your hand in front of your mouth like this. There's a fire. And you shouldn't feel any air on your hand when you're singing with optimal airflow. So that means sometimes you might let air out before you do an exercise because we've got too much. So there's a fire burning in my heart. Ew! So you shouldn't feel hardly any air. And doing that with exercises, with your breathing exercises, with your scales, that's going to start to give you an indicator. Now, for some of you, you might not be using enough air, but you shouldn't be able to feel very much at all when you're doing that. Now, at first it'll feel really weird, but that is really a game changer for showing you if you are using way too much air. Enjoy that. The reason I use the operatic as an example is because they're elite in the way they look after their voice. Very few contemporary singers, giggers, anything like that really look after their voice the way it needs to be. So we can look at that and go, wow, if that's what they're doing at that elite level, then it's great tools for us. Now, probably the last one is going to be how hydration affects you when you're singing and with the high notes. It is a real game changer. Hydration affects your range by nearly an octave if you're dehydrated. And as we've spoken about, you know, most of us are walking around dehydrated, and water is not enough. It's just not possible to drink enough water to hydrate your voice. It takes 4 hours when you drink water minimum to get to your vocal folds. If you're dehydrated, it can take up to 3 days. So we've got to have other hacks to hydrate our voice. Now, air conditioning, we're breathing in 20,000 times a day. It's hitting our vocal folds, air. So we've got to have other hacks to hydrate. But the impact of dehydration on our vocal folds is they have friction, right, when they're dehydrated. And so then when you go to stretch for those high notes, because the vocal folds have to stretch for the high notes, the friction just causes resistance. And swelling. Eventually you'll also get swelling if you're dehydrated. So that means that the tonal quality is affected, the resonance, the freedom, and your range can drop by nearly an octave when you're dehydrated. Now, if you're dehydrated all the time doing exercises trying to get to those high notes, then you're actually struggling, and it's not about the exercises, it's actually about the hydration. So it's a game changer when you learn to hydrate and the impact of dehydration on your voice. Hopefully you've loved this content, and we have so much more because we want to help you unlock your singing voice. So feel free to subscribe, like, comment, and we've got lots of content. There's a course you can jump into that we've made really affordable so you can learn the steps to unlock your singing and your voice, or you can book me one-on-one if you need that clarity and that direction to unlock faster.